Welcome back to part 3 of this 10-part miniseries called Location, 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 where I discuss the stage possibilities of various Nintendo and non-Nintendo characters if they were to join Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. If you are new here and somehow haven't seen any of the other parts of this series, here's a quick rundown of the rules. Number 1, we will not be discussing the possibilities of any characters. All characters are treated as equals in this series. Number 2, I can't know every series inside and out. Some of these suggestions will be made just by some trailer watching and what little I know of the series, so if you have played these series, feel free to leave more and better suggestions in the comments section below. And number 3, remember to not take it too seriously, it's all in the fun of discussing and speculating. Starting off with Nintendo's forgotten toy Chibi-Robo, this little guy has been tossed to the wayside and left out in the rain like something out of Toy Story 3. Though after his latest game, can we really blame Nintendo? But with a redemption arc of returning to the limelight by becoming a playable fighter in Smash, what stage would he bring? Since most fans and probably Nintendo would like to forget about his latest adventure, let's look deeper into Chibi's origin for inspiration. I say a stage based off the location of the first game Chibi-Robo Plug Into Adventure on the GameCube, that location being the Sanderson house. Playing probably somewhat similar to the living room stage in Smash from Nintendogs, with toys and other household objects being obstacles and hazards, as Chibi-Robo has brought the other fighters down to his size to fight. Or this could also be a traveling stage through the Sanderson house going from room to room, and encountering varying obstacles that way. Just about everything is a hazard when you're that small. With the recent success of the Final Fantasy VII Remake once again solidifying that game and story as one of the cornerstones of gaming, it would make sense to have one of Cloud's companions join him in the ultimate fight of Smash. And who better else than his combat partner of Tifa Lockhart. There could be made an argument for the villain of the story Sephiroth, as he's a bit bigger of a more well-known character than Tifa, with him crossing over into Kingdom Hearts and such, but adding him in his massive long sword might just be a bit too much for Smash, and if they shorten his sword to make it fair, that would just be doing the character an injustice. So Tifa works out. They could easily pull a stage from the unreleased part 2 of the remake, but since that isn't out yet and we don't want to rely on the original game for clues, we'll just be focusing on part 1. And that stage would be deep in the heart of the Mako reactor, which would make the most sense. Like we have said with other characters, using a recognizable early location from the game makes the most sense. We would have fighters fighting on the platform surrounded by the pool of Mako energy. The Scorpion Sentinel could even come crashing down from up above to interrupt the fight with its laser attack. And I know you're thinking having a place like the 7th Heaven Bar or even the place where you fight the Airbuster boss would make the more sense for the Tifa character, since she's actually a part of the story at that time and she isn't during the Mako reactor part. But those parts of the story just aren't as interesting for a stage for Smash than like something like the Mako reactor would be. Hey, remember when we were all convinced the Doomslayer was going to be our next DLC fighter? I mean, it could still happen, but man were we convinced it was going to be in the first Fighter's Pass. So picking a stage for him was rather troublesome, as there doesn't seem to be a reoccurring area in the latest Doom franchise, or any place that really stands out. At least any that aren't late game stages. Kind of like the last stage where you fight the Icon of Sin at the end of Doom Eternal. But that imagery might be a bit too much for the good boys and girls who play Smash. Plus it's endgame, like we said, so we know they don't like to use that. I mean, we could just have a random level on the surface of Mars that's kind of based on both the Doom 2016 reboot and Doom Eternal, but that doesn't really come across as interesting. So I came up with using the hub world that came in Doom Eternal, that being the Fortress of Doom. His home where he hangs his metal records and upgrades his weapons in between missions. It's a multi-level construct, so having floating platforms to brawl on wouldn't be much of a hassle. To even keep the theme of Doom alive, there is a level in Doom Eternal where demons invade the fortress, so you could have Doom's famous enemies invade in the background. And can we talk about how great the music that would come with this stage would be? Kind of like the Ratchet & Clank scenario, Spyro the Dragon visits many worlds throughout his games, and of course many people have their own personal favorite, which makes picking a stage to represent him and his games a little tricky. But thankfully, unlike Ratchet & Clank, Spyro actually has a homeworld of sorts that he comes back to in the original Spyro game, that being the Artesian world you start off in Spyro 1. This would be a rather simple stage in design, as it would be flat on both ends, but have the elevated platform in the middle to battle on, where you find that first dragon. Kind of like a reverse Green Hill Zone. The appeal of the stage obviously being the dragons and enemies running around in the background from the Spyro franchise, and maybe even the gems could be collectible like the Mario stage that we have with the coins. I know I said that we wouldn't be talking about characters' chances of being added to Smash in this series, but hear me out for a second. With the new Paper Mario game literally around the corner, and Fighters Pass 2 probably being decided around the time the game was heavily in development, Paper Mario is starting to feel very likely to me. Anyway, back to stages. With the Origami King coming out, obviously they would want to promote that with a stage with Paper Mario's inclusion. A stage based on Toad Town seems likely as it is a reoccurring town within the Paper Mario franchise, being in the original, Thousand Year Door, and the new Origami King game. Like some other stages I have discussed that are based on cities, either a floating platform floating above it, or down on the streets would work. A floating platform showing the Origami King's takeover of the castle with the streamers happening in the background like in the trailer would be pretty cool. And being down on the streets of Toad Town with the various allies and enemies running around making cameos could also work very much as well. Either way, it's going to be a stage that shows off everything that the new Origami King game has to offer. And there we go, another 5 characters down and only so many more to go. Which one was your favorite? Which one would you alter or change completely? Be sure to leave those comments in the section down below, along with liking and subscribing for more. Until next time, see ya!